Hello, ma'am.
Hello. Hello. Thank you, Fazia, Ma'am, Fazia Begum. You join on time every day. Thank you for this. Hello, Savita, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, good morning, welcome.
Very happy to be here.
Very happy to. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. We'll start just maybe in another 2 minutes because we are waiting for participants to join.
Absolutely not a problem.
Yeah.
Have to get used to this speaking on a Zoom again. It's been a while.
Okay,
And we can maybe verify that our volume is all right.
yeah, it's
We're
clear
talking.
and loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me when to go and we'll go. Tell me when to stop and we'll stop.
No, I think everybody will be here. They're excited to have this session.
We're excited to give it.
Thank
in,
you.
Unknown territory, but it's it's like part of the presentation, I guess. Has to do exactly with that.
Yeah, it's going to be a new experience for us also, as we had very formal setup whenever we have faculty development program here.
Welcome.
Hello, good morning, good evening.
Yeah.
What- Good, whatever time it is.
Shall we start, Jaya?
Just right. I'll make Malcolm co-host so that. Um, is there anything in setting which is not allowing me to make you co-host? Can you just check?
I missed the question.
Is there anything in your setting which is not allowing me to make you co-host? Because generally I get that option, but here I'm not getting.
I don't know.
Yes.
No.
I really don't know.
Will we still be able to share our screen if we don't?
No, I think have to see that option in that case.
So I'm looking at all of our settings.
No, I think you won't be able to share if until I make you co-host. No,
Could we?
I'm not getting that option. I'm checking from my side. Can you just check once?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
You're brilliant.
Yeah.
Co-host. Yeah. Seems to be okay.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome again, Malcolm and Amy, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. So I have my colleagues with me here, Dr. T. Hamoti. She will take this privilege to introduce you, and after that we can start the session.
Super.
Good evening, Mr. Malcolm Webb and Ms. Yenny. Welcome to this session. And good evening, all the participants. Let me introduce our resource person today, Mr. Malcolm Webb. He's a coordinator, Department of Language, CEGEP Rimouski. And after having worked for many years as a historical tour guide for Parks Canada, Malcolm switched to teaching 25 years ago. He has a wide range of experience and he worked as a high school teacher in a variety of subjects. And he has been a college ESL teacher at CEGEP Rimouski since 2008. His university studies were in political science, history, theatre, and ESL. He is a father, a Canadian football coach, a musician, an all-rounder. He has love for traveling and he loves being close to the oceans. I welcome you, sir. And the topic today is the importance of the first day of the class, first day of class. Sir, over to you.
Yep, perfect. Thank you so very much. The first part is going to be with me, and I'll go on for a little while, as I do. Then the second part will be with Amy about our different help centers that we have here. And I got to remember the camera is there, not there. Is that okay with everybody?
Fine.
All right, so we'll share our screen. Get started with where we are, who we are.
Mute first camera banji.
If we can just confirm whether the screen is
Yes.
shared. Okay, everything's there, all right?
Yes.
Okay. So, first of all, as we mentioned, my experiences as a teacher are varied. I've come from a lot of different environments in terms of what I've had, and my screen is not switching. Give me a second. We'll figure it out. And a few things we need to explain. Well, first of all, a little bit more about me. That is me there a couple years ago. I started working in tourism, which in historical tourism, and it had an impact, and it still has an impact on the way I teach, in that when a group would come in, I would have about 10-15 minutes to introduce, discuss, and bring in the people to my topic. And that 10 to 15 minutes is very similar, I find, to the first 10 to 15 minutes of a first day of class. And from there, I moved on to teaching for numerous reasons, but I discovered that I love working with people. I love talking to people, but I'm not a salesman. I don't like dealing with trying to convince people to buy things or anything along those lines, but I really love discussing and talking with people. And then I became a high school teacher, which the reality of a high school teacher as compared to a college teacher is not the same thing, but there are still many, many different elements that we have that are very, very similar. And especially within the context that we have here in our college. And just to say, as a teacher, I prefer answering questions as they come along. So if you have any, please don't hesitate to stop me. From where I am, I can't see if there are questions that are written. Maybe a little bit more like that. So Amy will help me with there. So if you have any questions, please, and just stop me and we'll go from there. All right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll help you on that.
All right, super. And if the volume's not okay, I'm talking too fast, which is something I do, which is very difficult for our ESL our students. They're like, slow down. Please don't hesitate, get me to slow down, and I will eventually. And I don't have any control over my pages. Yes, please. All right, so first of all, high school here is probably similar to many different places. Students here go from grade school. They have 6 years of grade school. Then they have 5 years of what's called secondary school here, high school. And then the paths move on from there. All students in Quebec normally will go through what's called a CEGEP, which is an acronym. Which has become a noun, but it is an acronym which first letter is a college. The second word is enseignement, which is teaching. The third letter is general, so general teaching, and professional teaching. So that together becomes, the acronym means a CEGEP. So our reality for us here in our, especially in our college, in our CEGEP here, is that we have both pre-university students, both technical students, students who are doing technical studies to go into different branches, different trades. And the pre-university students normally will go on to university, do a 3-year BA program after that. So that in itself creates an interesting dynamic in our classes because we both have university-bound students and professional-bound students within our classrooms themselves, right? So we don't have, in our classrooms, we don't have like people who are just in one program of study. And that really has an impact on how we teach, the way we organize our classes, and as well, we'll talk about today, the first day of classes. So another aspect as to what has an impact, and that's really the first part of what I'm talking about here. What are the elements that have an impact on our classroom dynamics is one of the things where we are. For Canada's huge, we are 6 hours east of Montreal. If you're thinking more Toronto, we're about 12 hours east of Toronto. We are, for here, it's a large town of 50,000. 50,000 people. And if you look at that little map, which is where our different branches of the CEGEP are, there are actually 4 branches of the CEGEP. There aren't any large towns apart from us nearby. We are considered the metropolis of the area. The next largest town close by is Quebec City, which is about 300, 400,000 in that area there. And in our whole area, there are a lot of communities, but they're much, much, much smaller. So our students tend to come from outside. About 60%, 60 to 70% of our students come from outside, which also has an impact on the reality of our classrooms and the importance of our first day to try to bring everybody into our classroom settings. We're still getting used to our changing pages. This is our CEGEP. This is the college, our college here. We are celebrating our 100th anniversary, which is super old for our town. Honestly, we had a major fire in 1958, which so most of our older buildings, unfortunately, are no longer here. I just wanted to share that with you because I enjoy our CEGEP. Here's another reality of where we are. The first thing we mentioned it at the beginning, I really, really appreciate being near the ocean, which is one of the main reasons that brought me to here. It's not technically the ocean, that's the St. Lawrence River, but it's about 50 kilometers wide where we are. It has an impact on a lot of aspects of our lives. For example, the wind this morning, it's -8, -9 degrees out. We have a 60-kilometer wind coming straight off the ocean. So for people who walk, it's a very, very cold morning. But the other aspect, which I guess more important for us, is the fact that everything is close, as you can see here, right? The residences, which are, it's within, was it 2 football fields, 3 football fields away? It's about, it's about 300 meters away. As you can see, it's a busy morning in Rimouski. If you look at where the CEGEP is, the parking lot is full, so which means it's a working day. We can see school buses, which means it's a school day, and that's about as much traffic. If you look at the streets close by, about as much traffic as we get here. It's a very quiet area in a lot of ways, which is an aspect that I really, really, really appreciate about living here. Now, this here for our CEGEP here, because we are the major CEGEP major college for our area, we have a wide array of different programs that we have in our school here. We have about 27 different programs. There are at least another 15 more specialized one-year programs for students. So for us in a classroom, you can have students of every single one of these programs that we have here. So the important point for us as teachers is that how can I say it? The personality types of the students who go to those programs are stereotypically different. They will be different all depending on what programs they're studying. And my example I'm using for today is a first day of class for a student's first English class, where you have on average 28, 27, 30 students, and they will be from an array of these different programs. And as you can see, the first 6 there, those are our pre-university programs, so natural sciences, humanities, communications, music, visual arts. And then we have our technical programs, which go from civil engineering to social work, to architecture, to police foundations, to nursing, a really, really, really wide array of different programs. As I mentioned there, which is an important element for a first day of class, 60% of our students come from outside of the region. So they're, for the most part, the first year students, it's their first time away from home, having to, live on their own, prepare their food on their own, groceries on their own. So it's a fairly big step for them. And again, please don't hesitate to stop me if ever you want me to re-explain anything or anything along those lines. Everybody okay up to now? Silence means okay. Okay. In a student's curriculum in our colleges, for a pre-university program, it's 2 years, 2 years full time, and for a technical program, it's 3 years full time. Within their curriculum, they have program-specific classes, but they also have 2 mandatory English classes, some mandatory philosophy classes, some mandatory French classes. We're in a totally French region. But for us, we have the 2 mandatory English classes, which they have to do. Not that they choose to do, they have to do, which also has an impact on our first day of classes. The way classes are divided in the curriculum, we have Block A, which is the first class, Block B, which is the second class. And what is really important for us as teachers and as students here is that they will be divided by level, not by programs. So the first class, it's all the programs together. The second class, we divide them to pre-university students and technical students. So it's a little bit more specialized, but they're still divided by level of English. 100 for us is a very introductory, very basic English, and then you go up to 103 where students are pretty much bilingual. We're able to do more literature, culture aspects, and then 101, they're good, still have a lot to learn. 102, they're fairly strong, and as I said, 103, they're basically bilingual there. You all okay with this? All righty. Now, when I go into a classroom for the very first time, kind of like what I'm going through right now, which is it's a new experience. It's different. Every single class is different, right? And there's a certain element of fear always going into an absolutely new classroom because you know where you start, you don't know where it's going to end up. And these are some little tricks, techniques, philosophies that I've developed, learned sometimes the hard way through more difficult groups, mainly through high school teaching, which is an entirely different dynamic, that have helped me get through the semesters, I hope develop a safe environment for my students to develop and improve their English skills. First one that actually comes from experience I've had before as a volunteer firefighter, which is something else I've done in my life, is fires are always easier to put out when they're still really small than when they become a big problem. So it's basically when you're faced with conflict, faced with a difficult situation, facing with a group that you're maybe having a hard time with, or a group of students that you're having a hard time with. I've always found that it's much better to try to find solutions to those problems right at the beginning, as soon as you identify them, instead of hoping that they'll go away for the next class or whatnot, where they become more major ones, more major problem. And so that's one of the things as I go into a classroom that I'm really trying to observe, to identify what are potential for problems that you might have, and then try to find solutions as soon as possible. The other one, which I encourage as the coordinator, as the department head here, I encourage all the new teachers to do is, one, see how other teachers give their classes, how other teachers are in classes. But it's very important to learn how to teach within yourself, who you are as a person, who you are as a teacher, how you are in a classroom environment. It's not everybody who runs around in a classroom. It's not everybody who is very structured when they use a whiteboard or Blackboard. We still have a few Blackboards. Blackboards are disappearing. But to teach within yourself, which I find is probably one of the more important elements as a teacher. I like being in a classroom. I enjoy being, I don't want to say confronted, because that's a kind of an aggressive word, but I love that feeling of being in a classroom with students, and like I said, kind of like what we're doing here, being outside of our comfort areas, sometimes, which is an important, I think it's important to be able to enjoy that. That relationship that you have with students is very important, and that's for me, it's very important to maintain that. It's tough sometimes, right? Because we all have our days where some days are more difficult than others. But when we're in I enjoy being in the classroom. And as a coordinator, where we deal with a lot of other problems outside of the classroom, I'm always happy to find myself to be in a classroom, because I don't have any messages to answer. I don't have any other situations like that to take care of apart from my students. The other very important element as well is take advantage of your colleagues. They're there. We help each other. Amy's beside me and she's nodding encouragingly at me. And the different levels of experience of your colleagues is all positive as well. Finding help from people with more experience, finding new ideas from newer teachers, finding interest from colleagues from around the world. Thank you, Jaya, for inviting me and having me here. I was very pleased. I have to admit, I thought honestly, initially, it was for your department specifically, Jaya, and I had just said yes. She asked, "Hey, do you want to participate?" And I said yes without really knowing what I was getting into. But I love this. This is beautiful. Thank you again.
For us, it's a different experience. As I said initially, that we had a very formal setting when we have FDP programs here, but we like this little informal.
Super, I appreciate it. And the last point, which you can please vary the percentage. You'll understand when I get there. It's a very low number right now. That comes from my experience, my background when I was working in tourism. The last place I worked at, which was in Quebec City, May and June were for school groups. And your normal workday, you had 8 hours, your 8-hour workday, and of that you had 7 groups because they let us eat. We had 7 groups of 1 hour of students would come in, and you had 1 hour to give a presentation, 1 hour to give a presentation, 1 hour, and they would be gone. And it was a very kind of a routine, very, very systematic 1 hour. And the students are, again, kind of like what we have here in our college. Students are coming from everywhere. They might not want to be there. It might be like a Thursday, Friday afternoon, Quebec City, 30 degrees out. They're almost on summer break. And the last thing they want to do after having seen 4 or 5 other sites during the day is to get 1 more hour of a presentation from some guy dressed as I was in that photo earlier, some weird looking guy. And I was trying to find how to stay positive, how to stay motivated within that environment. Kind of industrial presentations, one after another. And what I was seeing from my colleagues around me was basically people are going in 2 different paths. They were either becoming kind of bitter with having, that routine of doing things, or they were trying to give a show to try to interest people and bring everybody in, being super clown-ish. And I was having a hard time trying to combine both. And I gave myself a 5% rule. And what I mean by that, again, as I said, the percentage is very, very flexible. I assumed that in every group that I had, there were a minimum of 5% of people in that group who are already interested. I mean, because, there are people who have interests in history, and it's the beauty of history, kind of like the beauty of teaching ESL, in that we can cover almost anything from a historical perspective. We can cover almost anything from an ESL perspective. I mean, what I mean is that if you like sports, well, sports were done in history. If you like history, you can do history in English. If you like fashion, fashion existed regardless of the period. And so I went by the assumption that in every single group I had, there were at least 5% of my group that were already won. They were already on my side. They're already interested in my side in my presentation. And what I would do is I would give everything I had for that 1 hour to that 5%. And if I felt that 5% were satisfied and happy by the end of my presentation, I figured that I won them even more so, but I brought along another 10, 15, 20, whatever percentage. I had brought along more people to have a positive impact on them. Obviously, as a teacher, 5% is not a very high success rate. We want that to be a little bit higher, but I kind of maintain that in the sense that in a classroom setting, generally speaking, in most group settings, you have positive leaders, you have negative leaders, and you have a group in the middle that could either go one side or the other. And I would much rather identify the positive leaders, the positive students, and bring the rest of the group up towards, to have a positive attitude within my classroom. Not necessarily positive results, positive attitude, which increases your chances of having positive results. So play with that percentage, but it's a small technique. It's kind of silly in a way, but it's helped me get through those tough groups, those more blasé groups where you have more negative elements in it. And it kind of guides the way I do things, where I like bringing people up towards the positives instead of focusing on the negatives. Hopefully that makes sense. It's worked for me. Hey, thank you so much, Amy. Alrighty, now we start, or the beginning of the semester starts in August, kind of last week of August. Normally, our classes, we have 3-hour classes once a week with our groups. And so we have 15 weeks with each one of our groups. So it's really not a lot of time with them when you think about it, especially considering evaluations, which take 2, 3, sometimes 4 classes out of your 15. So we really have our students for 10 sessions of 3 hours each. That's something you really got to think of with your first classes. And the first class, and here, that's why I wanted to introduce what a CEGEP is, our reality in terms of Rimouski. Knowing that 8-10, first class of the semester, you have the majority of your students, it'll be their very first college class. Coming from a high school background, with all the baggage they have from high school, all their preconceived notions that they've developed as a high school student, in regards to homework, in regards to teachers, in regards to attitudes in classes, and also their preconceived notions as to what a college setting is going to be. And so that's something really have to keep in mind, I find, because it can create situations. Now, our objectives in our first class for us is, first of all, we need to present the course plan to the students. That's something that has to be done within that first class. How the 15 weeks work, the evaluations, because they have obligatory evaluations that they have to pass to pass the class. So we really need to explain that. And the other element that we have is that, as I've said, they're placed by levels 100, 101, 102, 103. We have to try to make sure that the students are in the right level, because they're placed in the levels depending on their high school results. Not all levels of English are the same within Quebec, within our province here. If you're growing up in Montreal, for example, in Quebec City, for example, Montreal is basically, one side is Anglophone, the other side is Francophone. So, I mean, your knowledge of English is going to be much higher than someone from a smaller community who might have never had a real English teacher in their school. So those levels can vary a little bit. So that's one of the things we need to do. And then, which is really the objective for today, is, as I said, we have them for 15 weeks. About 4 or 5 of those are evaluations. We have 10 weeks to move them along, to help them improve, to help them bring them to a level where they will pass the class, move on to the second one. And that's the real challenge here, is how to do that. And that's hopefully, it's not, I won't be able to give you a rule that will apply to everybody, but it's something that's worked for me up to now. And I'm still a teacher, and I still love teaching, and I will do it next fall. And so I'll go with the assumption that it works for me. Yeah, thank you. All right, so Monday morning, 8:10, first class, August 25th. I've taken a little snapshot of a actual class which I've given before, for a couple reasons. One is to give you an idea of the class size. That was a fairly smallish one. Normally, we have about 28, 29, 30 students in that area there for our groups. If you look at the top of it, it is a 101 level class. And so in a 101 class, I will be able to talk in English for almost the majority of it Students will be able to follow along. I will have to slow down. I will have to limit my silly jokes and word games and these kind of things because I'll lose students. But I personally, I really enjoy the one-on-ones because they will see their improvement. It will be fairly obvious to them that they have been improving and they're working on it, and they'll be able to ask the questions in English to help them improve. Personally, I've always enjoyed the one-on-ones. Now, if you look at the programs, I don't know if that's large enough for everybody. Are you able to see the names of the programs?
No, I think it's just too small to read.
Too small, huh? Oh, no. All right. So just very, very quickly, and this is very important for our reality as teachers. They are from numerous backgrounds, and this is just by programs, just how different they are from backgrounds. All right. So very quickly, I'm just going to throw the names out there very quickly. Computer science, social science, police technologies, diagnostic imaging, biomedical lab tech, special care, forestry, pathways, which leads them into a program. They're for people who are not quite sure what programs they want. Another pathways, biomedical lab tech, police tech, social sciences, another police tech. That's going to be important. Computer sciences, special care, business management, social science, mechanical engineering, another police tech, and another pathway. All right, so the students, the personality types of your students are very, very different. This class, I actually remember it, very heavy concentration, core group of police technology students. So they finish here, then they go to the police finishing school to become police officers. Generally speaking, they will appear to be very confident students as they come into the classroom. What you will see with a classroom like this is they will be sitting together. By programs, normally they'll be sitting together, right? Or by friends, because if they're coming from outside, they might not know anybody, so they'll be sitting around in your classroom. But people from programs together will normally be clumped together, which has an impact as well. The other thing, which if you can't see the names of the programs, I don't think you'll be able to see the first letters, first numbers of their student IDs, which tells us what year they started. So if I look at this class group here, I have students from 3 different years in the classroom. So there are first year students, second year students, third year students, all mixed together in the classroom. I don't know if you're able to see an S or an SA under there. Probably not. If you can't see the name of the programs, could just confirm that. There's a small S you might see up here underneath. You can't really see that. A small S that appears under the program names. Those are for students who are in different sports programs within it, which also again has an impact on whom they are as a person. And you also might see an SA in that class. There was only one. Those are for our adapted services. I'm translating at the same name at the same time because their names are all in French here, right? So adapted services. So those are services that are specialized for a student who has a different condition, problematic reality, everything from someone who is dyslexia, someone who's deaf, and someone who's different realities, and to give them a little bit extra help or an environment to help them learn, which also has an impact on when we're talking about with inclusion here. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, just stopping you to know this, like, as you said, somebody who has some kind of a mental issue, they are also in the same class where other students sit. Won't it become so difficult for you to handle?
Oh, yes. Well, it will really vary on the students. I've had students who needed to be accompanied, to have someone to help them take notes for them, for example. I've had students where, anywhere on the spectrum, of autism spectrum,
Oh,
right? So I've had students with Asperger, I've had students with autism, and their realities are that, you know, we adapt. We adapt, and some are easier than others, some are a little bit more difficult, some more challenging.
yeah.
I had a student who slowly went deaf, lost her hearing during this semester. You know, and it's very challenging on numerous levels with this poor 19, 20-year-old student who was slow, you know, she was losing her hearing. Each week was a little bit worse. Well, when it came time to evaluations, with listening evaluations, speaking evaluations,
So challenging.
oh yeah, we get really flexible really quickly. But that's kind of our reality, and that's what what I wanted to talk about is, you know, our reality is so different, and each classroom is absolutely so different. So, if I was going to say I'm facing a classroom, and I don't want to use that term because it sounds confrontational, but as I look at my class list, there are things you can assume. And I don't believe science is teaching is more of an art in a lot of ways, because what we assume, it has happened more than once where you're in the classroom and it's not at all the same as the assumption you make. Where if I look at a classroom like this, my assumption is those police foundation students are going to create a core group together, and they often sit in the middle of your classroom, and they're often, like I said, they're more, you know, confident in their attitudes, even though that confidence might be hiding fear, shyness, problems with learning as well, and they hide it by being confident and confrontational sometimes. My first tendency with a group like that is divide the groups.
So your institute provide it's an inclusive institution providing accommodation for people with difficulties.
Yes.
Excellent. That's an excellent job. Perhaps in the higher education, we can only opt for that. Even the university where I was teaching, the same thing. There was a girl who used to shiver while writing. So then she had to be, she was recommended to give an extra of 30 minutes to complete her paper.
Absolutely.
English. Thank you, sir. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a department that we have of the adapted services, which allow the extra time, perhaps 30 minutes writing. For a student with dyslexia, writing by hand is not easy, and dyslexia in your second language is even more difficult. So we do have services where they will able to do the evaluations. I generally try to plan my evaluations to already allow that time if they prefer to stay in the classroom. Not everybody wants to stay in the classroom, but some do, because you might have students. We might have students who can't handle extra noise.
That's true. Yeah, and at the higher level of tertiary level of education, I think that's the only possible way, right? We can't have a college for dyslexia people. Am I right? And that's the right.
That's kind of the reality with the size of where we are.
True.
Right? True. Where we have a lot of various realities, but we don't have enough to justify one person working with them or whatnot. So our classrooms have to be inclusive.
And that's the right way, I think. That's the right way, because the world is a world of diversity, and we need to bear with all. We can't have a world only for elites. Am I right?
Oh, no, exactly.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Sorry.
I prefer this. I'm more of an question answer kind of presenter. I don't like just hearing myself talk for a while. So please feel free to ask more questions.
And do you set your classroom rules before you start? I think that's another activity that could be done in the first day of the school.
Absolutely. That's within what I was talking about, like the objectives of the first class. In the course plan, you'll have the rules will be there, and I do cover those, right? When I talk about the objective, I try to bring it back to the student, right? What is their objective for the class? And then everything else comes from there on for me. Their objective is to improve.
That's right.
Right? They want to pass their class.
Yeah.
If you want to pass your class, you need to improve, because if you're here, you're not ready yet to do your final evaluations to try to pass. If you are, you're not on the right level. So we need to change your levels, right? Where you need to have a challenge, obstacles to help you improve, to get to where you want to be able to pass the class. As an ESL teacher, how do you improve your language skills?
To suit your further program.
You need to use them.
Yeah, true.
To improve your language skills, you need to use them. When you're in a classroom like this and you're sitting with a bunch of students that you don't know, you're new in the CEGEP, you're new in the class, you're new in your program, you have this group of guys and girls who are in the police foundation. They come in, they take up space. How do you find space for yourself to allow you to improve, to practice, to improve, to pass? So that's something I bring that back all the time, that the goal is for you, the student, to improve.
So in fact, each student should be a matter of your focus, I think. So the learning objectives and the outcomes that should be specified for each student. Am I right? Since you have a diversity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to be, because within a classroom like I have here, you have every single personality type possible that you might encounter anywhere, right? You have the people, and what's the best learning environment for each one of those personality types, right? The kinetic people, the people who need to move and do around, they like getting up and doing group work. The quiet person who's shy in the back will still have to participate, but how do you bring them in? And that's where
that's
challenge.
Your challenge.
That's where the fun is, right? And it's very good that you mentioned within the class rules, it's not written officially in the rules, but learning a new language is not easy. Using a new language is not easy. There's a lot of fear involved. When you're facing someone you don't know who doesn't speak your language, or any of the languages you might know, and you have to try to, there's really a lot of fear. And so how to overcome that is being in a safe environment.
It's really challenging, bro. It's really challenging.
Oh yeah, it's very challenging. That's where that's where the fun is. And how to, help students jump off that cliff, if it's okay for me to use that as an expression, of jump off that cliff of trying something new that they've never tried before. Getting out of their learned base sentences to try something new. Not always using the same verb tenses all the time to explain everything, which is honestly the way I speak Spanish. Everything is in the present for me in Spanish. But to try new verb tenses, and play around, go with that. You okay?
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Did
I answer your question? Yeah.
Yes, excellent.
Okay. Within this reality here again of our classroom settings, that we don't, because here we have a student's their program, we have what years they are, we have an indication of their realities a little bit, if they're adapted services or not. We do have more and more international students in our classrooms as well, which is another element we need to consider, because of their background with English, their background with school, right, might and usually is very different from the background of a student from Quebec or whatnot, which adds an entirely different level to what we have here. So this is what, generally speaking, which kind of my guideline for what I keep in mind for myself for first classes. We mentioned the course plan, which includes the rules, the classroom rules, which again, the goal is improvement. So my main rule is we need to create a safe environment to take risks, to help people improve. Safely take risks, goal is improvement, like I say there. So all of my rules kind of go around with that, right? They go around with that attitude, with that objective that one, the goal is your individual as a student, your objective to improve. The other objective is to create a safe environment for people to be able to improve and take risks. So all of the rules in terms of leaving class, coming back to class, arriving late, those elements are all part of, again, your objective is to improve, your objective is to create a safe environment for yourself, for everybody else. The notion of respect of when people are trying, which is very, very, very important when you're trying to improve. And then after that, once I've gone through that, I like creating movement in my classroom in the sense that I don't spend a lot of time at a board writing. I tend to spend a lot of time really close to the students in the classroom. I tend to spend a lot of time walking around the classroom, teaching from the back of the classroom, teaching from the sides, you know, change the environment a little bit for them. And also what that does is it helps break down the groups again and create new groups with people. Because if I take, for example, like I said, I remember this class is from a couple of years ago. That whole group of Police Foundation students, about 6 or 7 of them, would all sit together right in the middle of the class, and they would take up that space, and they're fairly, you know, a lot of them are larger boys, bigger boys, and these kind of things. And so students would be almost hidden behind them. And if I'm in front, I would not even see those students in the back. And so I would teach from the sides, from the back of the classroom, just to create a little bit of an uncomfortable situation sometimes with them. Then from there, again, if I'm in my first class, I would start with creating small groups, one-on-one groups. And I will assign the students, again, to divide the friends, because that's something you see a lot of. You'll have 2 friends in a classroom. They will sit absolutely together. Often what you'll have is that one of the 2 is a little bit better in English. And then if you ask a question to the weaker of the 2, they will turn to their friend and wait for their friend to answer. So you want to try to divide those groups. And so you get the 2 small groups of 2 people together, talking, discussing. You might give them topics. You might give them, you know, questions to ask of one another to get to know one another. Everything from where they're from, what they're studying, what their interests are, whatnot. And then you increase the size of the groups. So you get the 2 that are working together, increase them to 4, and then from there to 8. And then from there, even if I go with like a class of 32, 2 halves of 16, and then develop from there. One thing I like doing, especially with the quieter, shyer people that you try to notice in your classroom, is as I'm circulating, I'm walking around the classroom, I'm listening, spending my entire time listening to them with our superhuman teacher listening skills. We hear everything in the classroom. And try to answer a question for someone who is a little bit shyer. All right, you hear, you know, like a student struggling with something or something along those lines, and you volunteer to answer the question. And as you're answering her question, I would move back and answer a little bit louder to include the classroom within her answer, and then try to create that dialogue with the student to include the larger of the classroom. And the goal there is to get students used to asking questions in the class, not being afraid of raising a hand, not being afraid of hearing their voice in another language, talking over everybody if you want with that. We all right up to now? So as I said, for my first class, The course plan is super important, so they know where we're going. Really, my goal is to have them, you know, take responsibility for their improvement, to improve, to pass the class. Because, as I've said, our classes for, like, for example, this English class here is an obligatory class. They have to take them. And so their attitude when they come into the class is not always positive, right? Obligatory class, English class, what do I have to take? Monday morning, you know, whatever negative attitudes they might have developed previously to your class. And it's very difficult sometimes to have them realize how important the English class is and to make it important for themselves. And if I'm able to do that by the end of my first class, to have heard everybody in my class, to have interacted with everybody in the class, to have answered at least a question from every single one of my students, generally speaking, that will be a good class for the next 14 weeks because we've just finished the first one. As I said, there's a large element of art to teaching. Obviously there's science involved in teaching. There's a large element of art in that. I don't know, I want to say more often than not, but the preconceived notions you might have when you're looking at your course list, and then when you enter the classroom, the realities might be totally different sometimes, and you have to adjust. Again, part of our reality as a teacher here, we adjust quickly. I've had classes where everybody wants to participate in everything. You give any kind of activity and they all want to jump in. I've had the opposite. I've had classes where the majority, I mean, 80% of my students were natural science students, which if you think stereotypically of whom they are, they're people who want to go off and study in biology, medicine, chemistry, physics, whatnot in university. And I thought it was going to be they wanted to be like really structured, do a lot of grammar, but they were one of the most creative groups I've ever had, where we did plays, we studied different things. So you have to be adaptive, be ready for surprises. Normally our classes, we have class at 8 or 12 or at 3, 8 to 11, 12 to 3, and 3 to 6 is usually where we have our students, which also has its realities. For example, if you have a group at 3 o'clock, it is possible that they've already had 6 hours of classes in their day, and they have another 3 hours of obligatory English at the end of their day before going off to work or wherever. So those are often difficult classes, and you have to be even more dynamic. Usually, sometimes they want less, but generally speaking, you need to be a little bit more dynamic with them. Okay. Another question. You have a question in French?
Yes.
Sorry.
Manali ma'am, you can go ahead.
C'est magnifique. The question is, salutations. I've always thought that it was difficult teaching French here, but today I don't think it is anymore. Is that becomes easy now?
I will not think about it anymore. I'll never think about it anymore. Thank you so much, sir.
My absolute pleasure. I'm enjoying
Je
this.
parle français un peu, pas couramment comme vous,
Excellent.
mais c'était absolument une remarquable expérience aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup.
Merci énormément. Ça me fait beaucoup plaisir de pouvoir partager avec vous autres. Maybe just.
You want to go back?
Yeah. No.
Sorry.
I'm not a Zoom teacher. I really don't know what I'm doing here with the Zoom.
Go back.
Yeah, we'll just go back because
Yeah. Sorry.
just before presenting the last our last little part with Amy, you know, when Jaya asked about teaching, you know, sharing with you guys, with all of you, notions of inclusion and how to make a classroom conducive, I was trying to think of exactly, you know, where would be, at what point in time would be the best time in terms of our semester, in terms of, you know, where we are in teaching. Right now, for example, we're in our week 10, our 10th week of teaching. So we know our groups, we know our students by where we are now. We know our students, and so if we don't have an inclusive classroom by now, I'm not doing my job properly, right? And so I really thought that that first day, which is the most stressful for everybody, ourselves included, it's the most exciting one. I find that that first day really sets the scene for what you might be able to achieve with that group, and to allow the opportunity for each student to try to improve. Not all of them will, and that's the reality with college, with our college students as well. I mean, not all of them succeed, not all of them take advantage of the situation, and you know, we can't how can I say this? We can't save them all, but we can give them the opportunity to improve and to improve in the class, pass the class, go to their second English class, and then complete their college studies after that in whatever program they're in. The general formation générale, which is what's called in French for us, those obligatory classes, that for us is what we do the most of in percentage-wise in terms of students, because all of our college students have 2 English classes. So we, you know, every single student will have 2 English classes. We have an English language, we have a languages program, which is, and the reality there is much different because the students choose to be in that program. And so in that program, we have English classes, we have Spanish classes, and we have German classes, we have translation classes and phonetics. And so I was debating whether to talk about our language students, but I find our general studies students even more challenging for inclusion. Because like I said, we know the students, they've chosen to be in the program, so they're a little bit different. Are there any questions specifically on the classroom settings, realities, first days of classes that I can answer right now?
Participants, you can ask questions.
Yeah, I would like to ask one question. I'm Dr. Yeah, do you have students from India where you make them sit along with the students of your country, or do you make any specific arrangements for them? Or maybe
Well,
to have a separate group for them that you make it?
that's a perfect question to ask, because it's actually the subject of the second part with my colleague Amy, who will talk more about that, of the reality. Usually international students, sometimes Quebec students, but it is a reality where a student might arrive, you know, mainly from French-speaking countries that have never had English classes or barely had English classes, and they have to pass their 2 college level English classes to be able to continue. But we'll get to that in a moment, unless there aren't any other questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much. But that, yeah, I was literally eager to know, like, you know, many of our Indian students go to Canada to study over there, right? So like they are facing a lot of problems over there in to understand the language, or to, you know, go with the teaching methodologies that you follow. And moreover, there are many problems they are encountering in kind of you know, exams that you conduct over there, because Indian teaching, where you have you know, text given to them before prior, and then they learn from the text and then they go on with the exams. But I don't think so it is there in Canada like that. They have a different concept altogether. They have to learn by their own and then write the exams. So do you encounter any problems with the Indian students, or is it manageable?
Yeah, I mean, very honestly, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had a student from India. I've had a colleague from India who's with us right now. Dr. Poonam Bakshi is here with us. Maybe she can say hi. Super happy to have worked with her, and it's because of her, or it's her fault. I can say that, I guess. No, it's because of Dr. Poonam that we're doing this right now, because she put us in contact with Dr. Jaya. But I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had a student from India. Yeah, because we're a French-speaking area. So, if we've had students from India, probably they've lived here for many years before arriving at the CEGEP. I don't think we've ever had a student from India come here just to study here.
I mean, like may not be from India, but from Asian countries or somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much more from African countries, honestly.
Okay.
And from French-speaking background.
Okay.
African countries, many from Europe, but mostly, and a little bit more recently from South America.
Okay.
But very, very, very few from Asia or any Asian countries, honestly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
We're small and far.
That's a beautiful country, actually.
I personally, I love it, even when it's minus 10 degrees outside with the wind. Like I said, I personally love it. And so this next part is exactly in line with what the most recent question was, is we do have a lot of students who arrive where their English level, their baggage of English learning isn't quite up to a college level English class, but they will still have to pass those 2 English classes to be able to pass their programs. So we do have services for them to help them attain our base level to be able to succeed. And this last part, the second part here, will be with my colleague Émile Lévesque, and we can reintroduce her, or she can introduce herself. She can go ahead. She's better than me at a lot of this stuff.
Okay. Right. All right. Hello, everybody. Good evening for you. I'm very happy to be here and honored. I might write my name because I forgot to write it in the presentation. So I will write my full name in here with the little French thingies, accents. You can see Émile Lévesque, that's my name. If you allow me for a minute, I will just stop sharing this presentation and I'll start sharing another one right away. Because we do have, I'll find it. All right. Are you able to see a presentation called Additional Support for Students?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Malcolm, and thank you, everybody here. I'm very happy to be here to talk about additional support. So a help center and help services that we offer our students we have different services. And because we do have a lot of students who need help, extra help, and Malcolm has explained a little bit what their background is, but I will add some information to it. So just to build on that, I think someone has their hand up. I don't know if
Manjula.
Yes.
Ma'am, do you have any question, Manjula ma'am? I think it's by mistake. You can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
no
I
worries.
apologize. It was by mistake.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
No worries, no problem. So yes, we do have many students. I will expand on that later, but for now, just to give you some information, because yes, first day of class, like Malcolm said, we do have to give students a diagnostic evaluation just to make sure they're in the right level, and that also gives them feedback. so we can discuss with them, like if we feel that they could, they would benefit from being at a lower level or higher level, then we can have that discussion with them. And that allows them, I think, to know better what they need exactly. And apart from our classes, our courses, students can participate in one or all or many of the following. So we have 3 different health measures. The first one is called Kool-Aid Center. Yes, that's the name of it, but actually it's a help center in English. So I will go into details after this very short presentation. But just to give you an overview, so we have peer tutoring service. So students help each other. Like there is one student who will help another student get better. But I will explain it more. The second one is a course that is, well, it used to be a workshop, and now it's now a course, an official course. So we're very happy. It's called in French Anglais Précollégial, which is like pre-college English. So this is a refresher course taught to students who need some extra help, extra time, extra explanations, etc., extra confidence as well. So I'll expand. And the third one is a language monitor or language assistant. And a few years ago, we had the pleasure of having Dr. Poonam Bakshi as our language. Hello, Poonam. Good to see you. To have her as our language monitor. So I will explain very briefly when I get there. But if you, Poonam, if you'd like to add something to my presentation when I get there, feel free to do so. To talk about your experience. So language monitors will give workshops to small groups of students. So we have all of these different services that can be added to the 3-hour class, English class that students have. So the first one is Kool-Aid Center, okay? But yeah, before I get there, I think I'll add to what Malcolm said about our international students. We do have now at CEGEP de Rimouski, we have around 2,000 students, a little bit more, 2,500 students. It depends, of course, on the year, and if you consider the CEGEP itself or other schools that are affiliated. And we have about 100, maybe a little bit more students who come from another country. So these students are mostly, they mostly come from French-speaking countries. Obviously, because except for their English class, everything else is in French. Like their education is in French, so it makes more sense. Well, for students to consider CEGEP de Rimouski if they already speak French, if they're already fluent, and besides, the environment here, like Malcolm said, is fully French. So it makes it easier for them to choose to come here. So we have a lot of students coming from France, whether metropolitan France, so in Europe, or Ile de la Réunion, or other like Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon even, which is 2 islands very close in North America, but that are part of France. We also have a lot of students coming from African countries, North Africa or West Africa, especially because and they got French education. So even if they speak other languages as well, they are fluent in French as well. So here in Canada, we have what we call ESL, so English as a second language. But in other countries, it might be considered to be, especially like in these countries that I mentioned, it is considered to be English as a foreign language. So it might be their third, fourth language, and French might be their second language, for example. So for them, well, English teaching might have been very different in their country. Many students come here and say, well, I had my first day of class in English, but I didn't understand what the teacher said because I am not used to having a 3-hour class in English. And so some of them were used to having explanations in French or in another language, or they were used to taking a lot of doing a lot of grammar exercises and not necessarily having to express themselves in English right away. So they're not used to that. And it might be a shock. So there's culture shock as well, because they're coming to Canada and everything is new. But there's also this shock of being in front of the teacher who speaks in English, and the other students around, the ones who come from Quebec, understand pretty much what's going on. And sometimes they feel that they're the only ones who don't understand, which might not be the case, but that's what they can feel like. So a lot of students need some like a few semesters to adapt to their English classes. So that's why we offer these services. But seriously, these services are also offered to all our students, whether they're from other countries or from Quebec, because we know that, like Malcolm said, we have students who come from smaller communities in which English was not necessarily present. So they did have English at high school, but they just didn't practice much. So they're not used to having 3-hour classes in English and a lot of work to do in English. So, so our first service is Kool-Aid Center. It's peer tutoring. So this has been going on for a few years now, many years actually. I wasn't even here when it started.
Or me.
Okay, so that's maybe 20 years?
2008.
2000, oh, no, not 20 years, but since 2008, the Kool-Aid Center has been operating. So at Kool-Aid Center, a lower level student, which we call the tutie, is matched with a higher level student or the tutor for a 1-hour tutoring session each week. So it's extra, okay? So students have their English class, but they can register. And then we have students who are at levels like 100 and 101 who are like tuties, so they get help. And students who are 102 or 103 level, they can help, they can become tutors, and they can help a student. So we pair them for the semester. So it's about, let's say, about 10 weeks, so 10 times that they meet each other. And our tutors get training because we want this to be inclusive, but not only for the tuties perspective, but also the tutors perspective, because tutors speak English, they're good at English, they feel confident, but sometimes they don't feel that confident to explain things or to be taken as a model, or to just to be like to be a tutor. That's a huge step to take. And so we train our tutors, and the key aspects that we give them is we really want to increase the tutees' self-confidence. Of course, like Malcolm said, improvement is key. Within 15 weeks, it's hard to see a lot of improvement on many different aspects, but if tutees increase their self-confidence and are able to take more risks, are able to ask in English, are able to try to make a sentence even though they don't know all the words, they don't know how to pronounce a word, but they still try to use it, they will improve. That's the way to improve, because they will get feedback from their teacher or from someone else, and then they can work on that. But some students who come to Kool-Aid Center don't have that confidence, and it was a lot of them already to come to Kool-Aid and ask for help. So then we really want our tutors to be encouraging. So we ask them to give them positive feedback when they make an effort to correct, of course, but to also not only focus on the negative side, but I'll always say, oh, that was good, you tried, and you had that was a good guess, for example, but it's not exactly it, so let's look at it together.
So are these tutor students only? It's a kind of a peer teaching where one student is teaching to another?
Yes, exactly. But it's interesting because there's also a teacher who is present. So this semester it's Malcolm and myself. So there's always a teacher, and we're kind of listening to what's going on in order to step in when there's a question, when there's something when we see that a tutor is struggling or doesn't know what to do, what kind of activity, etc. So we're there to help. And we want to make it fun. We tell our tutors, you're not teachers. You didn't yes, of course, you had a 2-hour session, a 2-hour training session with us, but you didn't study teaching or anything. So you're not experts. And sometimes we have many tutors who are higher level students, but they don't necessarily they're bilingual, but it's not because they studied English grammar. It's because they lived in an English-speaking environment. So sometimes they just don't know how to explain things, and that's totally okay. So we're there to help and give them examples of activities. Here is something you could do. I think you could have a conversation about this and that topic or anything like that. But yes, we really want both students to gain something from this.
Yeah, advanced learner and beginners, maybe.
Yes, exactly. And there's a model that was developed. So we have teaching units that were developed by our colleagues in this department. And so they developed teaching units on, for example, the simple present tense. And then you have a dialogue that students can read. Everything is digital, so it's little booklets, online booklets. So there's a dialogue, there are activities they can find, they can click, and that brings them to external websites with a game. So tutors don't have to prepare anything, they just go with the flow, and so that's very appreciated. So when Malcolm said colleagues are important in this regard, it is the case because we're using each other's materials. And the MAP model was also developed and used by our colleagues. Model, apply, perfect. So we ask our tutors to pronounce a word, for instance, or pronounce a sentence, then the tutee tries, repeats, and the tutor will correct without saying, no, that's not it, but just by repeating, and then until tutees get it right. So we have a lot of success with this, many returning tutees and tutors semester after semester. A lot of them actually become friends because it's good for tutees to be with someone their age, who knows what it is to study at CEGEP, who knows what it is to have different obligations, different classes, like a lot of homework, an apartment to take care of, etc. So it's very positive with this. I will move on, but if you have questions, don't hesitate, and you can also ask questions at the end when I'm done with the different help services. So Anglais Précollégial, this is a refresher course. It's an extra course, so it's non-credited, but we noticed, not just here in the CEGEP, but in other colleges as well in Quebec, that a lot of students needed extra support to pass the lowest level English class. Given their background, a lot of them are international students, but we also have students from Quebec who for different reasons had difficulties struggled with English in high school and passed, but really barely passed. So there's a huge step, so we need to give them extra help. So this class is actually very flexible in a way. There are online activities on the Moodle platform. I don't know if it's a platform that you use, but with the online activities that were developed by other CEGEPs, and that we can, as a team, we can make like changes to it and improve it. So these activities focus on basic vocabulary. So some students still struggle with the alphabet and Okay. Is there a question or a microphone?
Somebody's mic is on. Let me just check.
Somebody can unmute. Yeah. It's
Okay.
disturbance.
Please mute yourself. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So these activities focus on, like I said, the alphabet numbers, the simple present tense, pronouns, I, you, she, he, it, etc. Simple past, future tense, just to make sure that we cover the basics. And so they can, focus on.
Mr. Venugopal, please mute yourself.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, so they focus on basic things that they might not have seen, or just they know it. Sometimes it's just in their passive vocabulary. They've never used it except in writing, and now they have to use it in class. It has to come out naturally, and for them it might be a challenge. So we want to work on that. And in this course, actually, it's not a lot. It's a lot of work online at home, but we have 1 hour a week of conversation workshops where we take whatever materials that they had to cover at home doing their online activities, and we have an activity in class around that. So, for example, the first day, except for a diagnostic test, we have like something of the sort of like an icebreaker activity where they have like, what's your name, or can you spell it, please? Where are you from? And what's your phone number? So they have to go around and ask these questions to each other. This is very basic, but it gives us as teachers a good idea of like what they need to work on. And at the same time, it's very inclusive because we have more or less half of our students in this class who are international students, and the other half is from Quebec. So it's very interesting to see them, like, I'm from Yamoussoukro, and then they're like, okay, where is that? Can you spell it, please? And then they have to spell, and then they say what country it is, and then other students will say, I'm from, and then they will name a village here that is well known to us in Rimouski, but that is not well known to a student from Senegal who just came here. So then they get to talk a little bit about each other, and it's very interesting as well to see them communicate. So we try to choose engaging topics like these. Of course, it's very basic English, so talking about themselves is easier. So breakfast in your country, for example, tell us about what you eat, what you have for breakfast, what do you like to prepare, what ingredients do you use? And then they can say, well, I try to find it here, but I can't, or, so I think it's very interesting to help them make links in the classroom with each other. Your favorite vacation, where did you go? And then they talk about a place they went to, and some places, well, we have to show pictures because no other students know about it. So in a way, it's a good way to yes, to practice English, but also to learn about each other's cultures in the classroom. So there's a very high satisfaction rate among students. We did some evaluations in the past, like in the past years. A lot of them consider themselves very weak in English at the beginning of the semester, but by the end of the semester, they said weak, not very weak anymore, which is a very good improvement. Like you said, improvement is key. So this course is taught either the same semester that they're taking the first English class, or ideally the semester before, but due to school organization with the schedules and everything that the administration has to deal with, more often than not, students will end up having both courses during the same semester, but it's doable. It's just an extra hour of English with extra online activities. So if you allow me, the third, and this is my last part, and then I will let Dr. Poonam Bakshi say a word about it if she wants to. We have a language monitor or language assistant. This is something we've had for numerous years, more than 20 years in that case, because I was a student personally here at CEGEP de Rimouski 22 years ago. And I remember we did have a language monitor back then. It's actually a program by our federal government of Canada, which is called the Odyssey program. So I just took a part of the text because I was never a monitor, but I have the chance of working with monitors every year, every semester. But monitors, if we look at what's on the slide, they work under the direction of the classroom teacher. So we kind of work together, and these monitors or language assistants provide students with the opportunity to practice their English language skills and learn about other Canadian cultural identities. So yes, here in Quebec, we do have English monitors, but in other provinces of Canada, where the main spoken language is English, they have French-speaking monitors. So we have some of our former students here who became French language monitors in other provinces. So language assistants or monitors have to prepare classroom activities that focus on enhancing the students' speaking skills. So it's really about like talking, playing games in English, in a respectful, creative way, and they get to share their culture, which is also great for students, and they get to help us in class as well, either by doing presentations or by helping us set up a game or an activity that requires more, let's say, or organization or anything that is a little bit different than our regular like teaching activities, let's say. So I don't know if Dr. Poonam Bakshi would like to say a word about her experience, please.
Yeah. Hello, Amy. First of all, it's nice to see you and Malcolm after almost 2 years. Although I am in touch with Malcolm, but with you, I haven't been. But yeah, I get to hear about all of you from Leslie, so I know all of you are well. So let me just introduce myself a little bit, because I think it would be good to compare the Canadian and the Indian system of education. So I worked as assistant professor in a government college in Himachal Pradesh. And when I came to Canada, I got this wonderful opportunity to be the language monitor at CEGEP. Now, of course, because I'm from the education background, it was a nice way to get my foot in the door. So I'm the teaching assistant. I see how the teachers teach, what kind of curriculum they have, how the teaching is done, what kind of students they have. So it was a good learning experience. So I'll just do a short comparison, because I think it would be helpful for my Indian counterparts. So in India, usually, we have a very big group of students. So when it was my first day of college, there were 120 students in the class. So whereas in CEGEP, it's a small group, maybe 20 or 25 students at the most. In India, we are not able to give one-on-one attention to the students, unless the student takes ownership of his learning and, chases the teacher and himself or herself does some assignment and then asks the teacher to correct, because we cannot. It's not possible to, give assignments to 120 students and then correct them and give feedback. But in CEGEP, I've seen that, we are able to monitor the students one-on-one. We are able to give them assignments, correct the assignments, give them feedback. So that helps them to learn the language in a much better way. Next thing which I noticed is when I was teaching, there were not many activities which were specifically aimed at speaking in India. So you just go there, you give the lecture, you come out, they have to do the grammar, they have to learn questions and then give the exam. At CEGEP, there are lots of activities which are based on increasing the oral competency. So it's like you're learning the grammar, you're learning the theory, but you're also using it practically within the class and also outside the class. So at CEGEP, when you learn English, it's not that you just learn some grammar. You would be able to go into the market and talk to the shopkeeper and, buy groceries for yourself using the English language. So it has that practical application, which I feel is lacking in Indian classrooms, because their sole focus is to learn by heart and just take the exam and that's it. As far as my experience is concerned, I thoroughly enjoyed being in Rimouski, working at CEGEP, working with my colleagues. It was a lovely experience. So I got my foot in the door, and because of that, today I'm teaching at the Royal Military College, Canada, even though it's a contractual position, but one thing leads to another. So that's what I have to say about my experience. If any of you want to ask any question regarding my experience, you're most welcome. Otherwise, if not, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam. And I would like to add here, as Poonam mentioned, that we have very large classrooms. We have 100 plus students when it comes to government colleges, and when it comes to private colleges, still we have 60 plus students. Okay, so paying attention individually, it is really hard. But at the same time, when I'm looking at the CEGEP, the kind of a diversity they have in their class, I think that is also very challenging. Okay, so our challenges differ, but I think both of us are working for the benefit of the students and focusing on the improvement part.
Maybe just to specify on that, here in Rimouski, we're a small community. The reality in Montreal is not the same thing where you'll have much larger classes. The reality in our large universities in Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, first year classes of 200, 300 students, it is entirely a reality, but not ours. We have a university here in Rimouski. Their classes aren't that much bigger than what we have here just because of the numbers we have. So.
Yes, and if I can add to that, I'm so sorry, I forgot to mention what my background is, but things go fast and I got caught in the moment, but just to say very quickly, I studied linguistics. I have a bachelor's degree in linguistics, and then I studied teaching of French as a second language. So I have a master's degree in teaching French grammar. So verb tenses, I love the grammar stuff. And then also then what we call I can't remember, graduate like studies and teaching adults, or like a high school level, higher level education. But what I wanted to say is that I have experience as well teaching French as a second language in English-speaking CEGEPs, because we do have that in Quebec too, but in the Montreal area. So in Montreal, since like Malcolm said, there are more people speaking English, there are some CEGEPs where all classes are in English, except for the French as a second language class. So it really is a mirror, okay, for of what we're doing here. And in Montreal, I had classes of let's say 40 students. So it was not like 60, was not 120, but it was still a different experience than here, because with 40 students, if you have 4 groups of 40 students, then I try personally, I learned everyone's name on week 1. So by the end of the first class, I can tell who is who. And then I give them the challenge. They have to remember too. So then they get to learn each other's names. And so then they can, you know, talk to each other. The one barrier is gone. So they can actually say hi to each other and know their names. So to me, that's very important. But when I had 40 students, I couldn't help them as much as I can now, because now we have groups of, I have very small groups this semester. I'm very lucky to have groups of 16 students. So I get to help everybody in a 3-hour class. But yeah, it's very different challenges.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we do what we can with what we have, the conditions we have, of course.
Yeah, but very interesting activities that you people mentioned for engaging students. Some of the comments are there in the chat box, and I hope that some participant really wants to discuss and want to ask some question. So now forum is open. You can ask questions.
Absolutely. Also, please, Dr. Jay, if you can share my email if anybody has any questions. And if there are questions for Amy, I'll just transfer them.
Yes, sure.
There's a good question, that
yeah.
just came by Manali. Is French, yes, is French used intermittently for teaching English there?
Yeah, for our lower level classes, absolutely. And the higher level you go up, the less and less and less French you would use. So for in a 100 level, there's still a fair bit of French that will be used, especially if you're, you know, trying to explain a grammar point and you're having a hard time, or they're having a hard time grasping it as you explain it in English. I would switch to French to explain it. For a 101 level group, fairly rarely, except like, for example, present perfect, I would tend to explain that one in French first and then switch back to English to explain it, because it's so weird and very different from French verb tenses, between present perfect and any French verb tenses.
Yes, and also our course plans are in French. That's the requirement. I think that's the way our CEGEP has worked. So all course plans are in French. So even if we're teaching English, our course plan is going to be in French. So that also, I think that helps all students understand what the course is about. So the first day of class, yes, we talk in English to them, but when it comes to the document that they have, it's all in French, so everyone gets to follow what's going on. There are no surprises as to, oh, I didn't know there was an evaluation because I did not understand what the teacher said. Well, it was in French, it's a printed document, and you have it, so there are no excuses. But yes, we do use French from time to time. I think personally, that's my personal experience. My name, as well as you could see somewhere in the comments, my name is Aimé, Amy in English, but Aimé in French, Lévesque. So it has like 2 little accent aigu things that really like. And I tell my students that I'm from Rimouski, so I studied here. My first language is French, etc. It's very obvious for students. So I tend to get a lot of student comments and questions in French, and I always have to ask them, no, ask in English. So yes, sometimes you have to negotiate that with students too, because since we share the same language, they wanna not make the effort and, you know, find an easier way. So that is something, yeah.
Yeah, one question I want to ask, like what kind of worksheets are when you teach grammar, like what do you make them do, like exercises, or do you make them do exercises, or do you give them worksheets, or do you give them some exercises of Any other kind that we can go with it?
A whole plethora of possibilities. As Amy mentioned, can't remember actually who mentioned it. I personally like using directly usable language skills that they would be able, Dr. Puna mentioned that, sorry, that you'd be able to use outside of your classroom setting. So if I'm working on different verb tenses, it would be on topics that are real to the student, talking about their present, their past, or their future. So, you know, what are your future, you know, study plans? What is your future job goal? What was your favorite experience in high school? So I would start from there personally.
But a lot of teachers here in our department use textbooks that are made specifically for like a focus that like on,
Yes,
I don't know, well, it's ESL textbooks. So they're like, they're made for CEGEP level, I'd say, that different levels. So some teachers will go with that, especially Malcolm mentioned there's block A and block B courses. The block A is when you get more varied backgrounds, very varied students, and whereas block B is more focused on whether it's technical programs or pre-university students, but they all, well, in the end, they come from different programs anyway, but it's more focused on their field of study. So personally, what I do then is more grammar that is, I tend to teach grammar in reaction to what students produce. So if I see, for example, that many students have like something that I came up with a couple of weeks ago, many students had trouble using commas properly and their sentence structure was a little bit off. So I included that in my teaching. So I said, okay, let's focus on how to use commas, periods, how to build and make sentences. So yes, so it really depends on what course you're teaching and also what you want to focus on as to grammar.
And
Maybe,
sorry,
yeah,
and one of the advantages of teaching ESL, like I said, talking about history, is that pretty much any area of interest you can use that to do your grammar points, right? To do your grammar activities or your speaking activities or writing activities. So, I mean, we've had teachers use movies, we've had teachers use, you know, anything at all, basically. Sorry.
Malcolm, could you share with them what do you do in your language lab? Because that's also an important component of teaching.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I would, the best would be to everybody follow me. I would show you, because we're just down the hall from our language labs, because we do have two classrooms with computers, with headsets, where we do oral activities, speaking activities. We have programs where the students are able to record themselves, to be able to hear themselves back, where they can have conversations as if they're doing a phone conversation with different students within the classroom on the headsets. In the labs as well, we can do a watching or a listening activity where you're listening for specific information and then discuss the information after that. So that's a great tool that we have. Like I said, the best would be to all come and visit. I'd be able to show you. A little bit far, but
and they can do research as well. We have students as part of their block B class, they sometimes write an essay about a topic, well, in English, about a topic that is in their field of study. So they have to do some research, they have to find articles or websites in English. So then they get to write as well in the labs. So we share these labs. They're almost taken, more or less.
Yeah.
Like,
fairly busy.
time. Yeah. And yes.
Yeah.
We have
Sorry,
some more questions in the
yeah.
chat box, and if you want, I can read out. Otherwise, you can
I
take
saw
them.
one question about French. Depends where you're going in Canada, honestly. I mean, as I've said, it's a very, very, very large country. There are areas where nobody speaks French, and there are areas where nobody speaks English. So it really all depends on where you're going. In Montreal, you can get by not speaking French. Quebec City, you'd probably be able to get by, as are a lot of tourists and a lot of federal government workers there. You'd probably be able to get by. The further east or north you go, the less and less, and you'd probably need some French to get by. But that's part of the fun of traveling.
We have
So,
some. Oh yes, sorry.
question, yeah. How to deal with poor listeners? Yes,
With
please.
slow listeners. Yeah, well, the first aspect is that they're divided by their level of English. So generally speaking, your classes are different in terms of the students' backgrounds, their programs, and all those other aspects that I talked a lot about, but they should all be fairly similar in terms of level of English. So if you're in a 101 level class, the descriptive is that you're somewhat comfortable to write, to talk, to discuss. So everybody should be within that category of somewhat comfortable. Obviously, I mean, we all learn at different speeds and different methods. It's difficult when you have a classroom of 32 students where 28, 29 of them are all at the right level, and you have one or two who are at a lower level. That's where we'd invite them to Kool-Aid Center. We'd invite them to our language monitor, right, for outside of classroom help.
And you earlier mentioned that there were some students with the hearing impairments, they are deaf. So like for them also the Kool-Aid Center helps?
Yeah.
I never experienced that, but
that was a difficult one. She ended up not being able to finish because one of the components there is the capacity to listen and understand information through listening activities, and she wasn't able, or the oral component, because she was still in the process of learning to speak without hearing, which so unfortunately she wasn't able to continue, and it was very, very sad. She's finished her college degree. I just didn't have her as a student after that.
I want to add one thing because we're talking about listening. So what I observed in CEGEP is the classes are 3 hours long, which is like so different from India. We have a class of 45 minutes. So what I saw there is that, teaching is a mix of activities and theory. So because if you give theory for all the 3 hours, the students will get bored and they will not even listen. So I've seen teachers using activities and then some theory so that they stay interested in the class. They're invested in it and not like mentally out of the class. So yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Yes, exactly. And listening skills, actually, this is something that students struggle with a lot, especially at lower levels. Like 100 level, 101 level students will, generally speaking, have more difficulties with listening activities, especially listening tests when they get stressed out. And it feels like they can't hear anything anymore in English. So we have a lot of students who struggle with that. So that's why we refer them to the language monitor, to our Kool-Aid Center, so that we want them to get as much practice as possible. So we also give them like tips such as watch your favorite movie, but in English this time. Like the story by heart, you've watched it in French many times, now watch it in English, use subtitles. Nowadays with technology, we have so many different options as for subtitles, so that we encourage them to get as much practice as possible, because we know that learning a language is not something that can be done 3 hours a week on one day only. Like you have to immerse yourself in the language, and our environment is mostly French, so they have to find these opportunities.
Just to continue with what Poonam was saying, like for a 3-hour class, I would usually break it up into 3 or 4 different activities, where I might have one aspect of a grammar point, practice it, use it, one aspect of conversation, where they're practicing using in groups, talking with themselves, amongst themselves. And then one last activity, perhaps at the lab with a listening activity, either listening for specific questions or different accents, grammar points, or so on.
There one participant asking some of the speaking and writing activities. This same question asked by Sudha ma'am also, that oral activities that you conduct in labs and diagnostic method you use to identify language proficiency of a students. So any software, any Moodle, or
for my diagnostic tests, I want to hear them. I want to hear the students speak. That really, and interact. Ideally with me, but I like hearing them amongst themselves, and ideally have them write something, just so I'm able to see the level that they're at for writing. I don't use other programs personally. I don't know about you, but I like, for example, I would create a survey of questions that they need to ask each other within the class. So they'd have to go to each person, ask their name, where are they from, what are you studying in, what's your favorite food, movie, for example, to create a dialogue, exchange names. All the time I'm listening, and I'll ask questions amongst themselves there.
Okay. So,
we're getting a whole pile of questions.
Yes.
I can't keep up.
But they're all very pertinent and relevant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I answer one there? And actually, one little thing I'm going to have to keep an eye on is the time, because it's the start of our work day. And we have actually a department meeting of the English department at 11:10. Maybe Amy start, or maybe I can go start the meeting. Amy can continue.
So I have shared your email ID. So if anybody has question, they can write to you, and I hope that you'll answer those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's my department, so they can wait for me until I arrive too. That's okay.
Okay. And it is a really wonderful session.
I would love to answer one question there.
Sure.
The one about I just left about using their mother tongue.
Oh yeah.
That's something that I encourage all my students, especially the lower level ones, think in the language you're writing. Think in the language you're speaking, right? Think. So for us here as ESL teachers, think in English. Use the words you know. Even if you only know 10, use those words. If you only know 25, use those words to try to create your sentences. Because if not, all the time, you're going to be doing two things. You're going to be translating, trying to figure out words all the time. And if you have an evaluation, you're going to be slowing down. But the other thing is you'll be using your other language's structure and trying to fit it into English. I mean, French and English is fairly similar, but there are very major differences in sentence structure where, for example, in English, we say we'll give the descriptive and then the noun. So like a blue car, right? You go from abstract color blue to the color to the car. In French, it's usually the reverse, where you'll start with la voiture, the car, and then you give the color, right? So the sentence structures, when students are writing and they're translating French to English, all the sentence structures are kind of inversed a little bit with that.
Like a privately owned blue car, that would be like a voiture bleue possédée par. So it's all reversed,
And possédé, that's good. That's good. Because there are a lot of similar words between French and English, but that don't mean the same thing. All the false cognates that we have, like possessed, in terms of being possessed by a demon, perhaps, or something along those lines, where they mean possession, right? Which is kind of an interesting one.
Can I just add a quick thing to this?
Sure.
Because I gave a workshop to 2Ds last week about how to prepare well for your English final writing exam. And something that a tip that I gave students was before you come to class, most of your classes are at 8, start at 8. So English might be their first class in the morning, right? So I tell them, listen to a podcast on your way to school, or listen to something in English on your way to school, some music that you like, so your brain is already like prepared, and you won't like lose so much time trying to switch back to English for your first class. So this is something I do as a teacher as well, because I use English only in class. That's pretty much it. So I use French in my family and everything. So I try to give them tips that I use for myself. So that makes us, I think that also makes it inclusive in a way. So then students feel that they're not, well, okay, the teacher has problems too, and she finds solutions for these problems.
Good.
So I'm not the only one with problems,
Yeah. And there are two things that we follow in every session. One is group photograph. So, and another is vote of thanks. So we have to formally end it. So I request all the participants, please turn on your cameras so that we can have a good photograph here.
Cool.
And I'll send you, Malcolm and Amy, this.
Yeah.
Again.
So we should look at the camera, I'm assuming, right?
Ms. Kalpana Bharti, she is my colleague.
Yes, Jaya.
And she's assisting us in this.
Hi there.
Hello.
You have to bear with me for a moment because it takes a little while.
No issues.
There was a question about AI, maybe I can answer at the same time.
Yeah.
I haven't been, and very, very seriously since COVID, where we were Zooming all the time, I've personally moved away from overuse of technology in my classrooms, and I've really been encouraging my students to talk to themselves, share writing activities amongst themselves, really interact in the classroom. But I do know a lot of my colleagues are, though. They've been using it quite a bit for developing activities, for thinking of activities, for even evaluations, course plans. Now people are using AI to develop their course plans, but not me personally.
But we're still in the process at CEGEP de Rimouski. We're still in the process of reflecting upon the use of AI in our school, actually. So right now it's more or less like people do what they think is right, but we might get guidelines soon enough. That's a reflection that's being held. So for now, it's a little bit, it depends. I don't use it either, but I tend to go along the same lines as Malcolm, but yeah.
Thank you. So now I request Dr. T. Haimavati to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jaya. On behalf of the faculty members of English, I extend my vote of thanks to the resource persons. At the outset, I thank our today's resource persons, Mr. Malcolm and Ms. Amy, for sharing their valuable insights. I thank Dr. Poonam Bakshi for adding flavor to the session. I am thankful to the management of CVR College of Engineering for providing us the support to conduct this workshop, without which we would not have come into touch with such great people, resource persons. We are very happy, and this was a very wonderful session. I thank all the participants for actively involving in this interactive session. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for, first of all, accepting this invitation. And then we also got to know the practices that you have in Canada. And as Poonam also added, so we could compare and we could learn that what are the engaging and practices that you have, and also got to know about this diversity that you are dealing. And thank you, Malcolm and Amy. It was really wonderful session. You can see the chat box is flooding with compliments.
No. Thank you so very much, everybody. Actually, I can't. Thank you so very much.
A formal and informal both.
Yeah.
This is how
very different.
Much appreciated. I'd much prefer to be in person next time, though. So we'll find a way to get me to India
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Or bring you all here.
I think that would be better that you come here.
Yes.
We have to bear only one person's expenditure.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, our classroom where I am right now, we wouldn't have enough room for everybody. To tell you the truth.
Well, thank you very much for this invitation. It was very, very appreciated. To have any questions, we're sorry we weren't able to answer, but
We'll get to them.
Please send emails.
And if you want to ask questions specifically to Amy, just put it in the headline and the header, and I would direct it the question directly to Amy,
Yes.
or I'll answer them myself.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, everybody. Have a good evening.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Take care, Poonam. We'll talk soon, Poonam.
Yeah.
Take care, everybody. Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So tomorrow we'll join with another session by Dr. Firoz from Oman. Yeah. See you at the same time. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.